Hey everybody, it's Matt Guyan again, doing another commentary. Hope you're not getting tired of these, because there's probably going to be a fair few of them coming out in the next few days or so. Um, I'm trying to collect all of my books versus movies reviews and kind of put them together as one full part, just so I have them. But you're not interested in that. You want me to hear me talk about this review. Um, this one, this is. I talked about a little bit about this in the commentary for Willy Wonka, but this was the first one where I started using where I started actually ripping the clips from the DVD, rather than trying to do the screen capture that I was doing before. It was also where I started superimposing the clips onto the television, because I realized that having the television actually on behind me was creating a lighting problem for moving Matt, and so I decided to keep the television off and superimpose the clips onto the television, and that worked a lot better. It was also a lot easier than trying to, turning around and playing the movie and then hoping that I got the timing right. I had fun with this review, as you can tell from that opening. It was. I absolutely adore The Time Traveler's Wife. It still is my favorite novel. It's a great story. I really enjoy just looking at it and analyzing it, and I really enjoy doing this comparison. I was pretty nervous about this movie when I first saw it. I was glad that Time Traveler's Wife had gotten enough recognition that it was being made into a movie, but at the same time, I knew that the movie could end up being really bad if it was poorly handled. And so I went into this with a little bit of trepidation, but I watched the movie and I really, really enjoyed it. It is a really good movie. Actually, watching this kind of makes me want to watch the movie again. It is a really, really good movie and a wonderful adaptation of this story. Not better than the book, and I kind of removed the mystery there by saying at the beginning, it's not better than the book. But my purpose in doing these is not necessarily to create suspense, is that which one is going to win. I mean, sometimes it's like that, but sometimes it's pretty obvious which one is going to win. Like, I'm going to be writing the Harry Potter review pretty soon, and the book is going to win. I mean, I'll just be upfront with you, the book is going to win, but you knew that already. If you know anything about me and my taste and what I think of the movies, you know that the books are going to win. But it's interesting to look and see why, just kind of parse everything and see what the differences are, what works better for the book, what works better for the movie, and why one, I think, is ultimately better than the other. If I were to do this review again, I would probably toy with the idea of making it a 7-category review and giving Claire and Henry their own separate categories rather than putting them together. It worked to put them together because I looked at the relationship between them as well, which is very important. And by giving them their own separate categories, of course, would lose that element of the review. But Henry, especially, is just so much better in the book. Claire, is, I think, is better in the movie because the actress playing her is so good. And Eric Bana is good too. Don't get me wrong, but it's just the way that he's written. He's written as a generally good guy. He doesn't have a lot of skeletons in his closet, really. And the book Henry really does. The book Henry is messed up. And I didn't really mention this in the review, but that also kind of gives it a little bit more of a realistic spin, because yeah, if somebody had this disorder where they were just kind of pulled back and forth through time, they'd probably be pretty messed up psychologically. So it makes sense that Henry is not always the best person. He's not real committed to his relationship. He has a problem with drinking. It all kind of makes sense. And so it does make him less likable in the book, but it also makes his character growth more dramatic, and it makes him into a more interesting character than we saw in the movie. And I think the book kind of balanced that with a really good sense of humor, and showed us that he was really an intelligent man, even though he had these problems. It also balanced it with the presence of Kimmy, which I talk about in the next round, the feisty Korean woman that I think every story can benefit from. She's a wonderful character, and she is really able to take him in hand and smack him around when he needs to be smacked around. And I think that's what makes it, one of the things that makes his character bearable in the book. And of course, there's Claire too. Claire keeping him sane and keeping him balanced and everything. I love the little girl that was playing young Claire. We only see her a couple of times because they don't focus as much on the characters as kids. But the little girl who was playing young Claire was wonderful. I mean, she was so funny. You know, played her, you know, funny and intelligent like she is as an adult. But it was just such so much fun to watch her play that character, and she was really enjoyable to watch. Really, really wish they could have done more, if for no other reason than so that actor could have been on screen more, because she was really enjoyable to watch.
Similarly, we don't get to see the early parts of their courtship. But even though we don't get to
Yeah, the
see
book
them,
really
we
gives us like the
develop
full
their
scope of the
relationship over the
relationship,
years.
like
We're also moving
everything.
from
This is
simply their
more
married life and
the
stage
adult
shows
portion of
a
the
lifetime of their
relationship.
relationship.
You
We show
know,
two
they're
people who are very much in love
you
despite
know, a
their
little bit of their
different
courtship and then
backgrounds.
mostly their
And their
marriage,
relationship
which I guess
grows.
is the, you know, meat of the story. I mean, it's called the time traveler's wife, obviously, but I really do like that the
While
book
this
kind of
story
gives us
is
the
about
full
Henry and Claire
scope, the full
primarily, there are
lifetime
a lot of people
of
in their
both
lives who
characters.
have to deal with this
That's not something
unusual
that the movie can
relationship
do
as
as
well.
easily, of course, and I understand that.
Let's start with families. Claire's family
Oh
is
yeah,
really
Claire's family
fascinating to
is
look at. It's basically
fascinating
the
in the book.
typical
It
portrait of a
really
well-to-do
is.
Catholic family who aren't nearly
I
as perfect as
mean,
they're trying to make themselves out to be. The characters themselves are really
it's
fascinating to
just.
analyze, and it actually adds an extra
I mean,
layer
I'll
of
just be repeating
dimension
basically
to
what I said in
Claire's
the
character
review,
when you
but
consider
just
that she
looking
grew up
at
with
these
these
different
people and
family
yet turned
members,
out the way that she did.
what
In
interests
the
me
movie,
is
we
that
rarely see Claire's
when you
family, and we
first read
certainly don't
about
get the
Claire's
opportunity to
family,
delve into their
your initial
origins.
impression is that the
Henry's
father
father
is
is
going to
kind of the
be,
same way.
you
Now,
know, the
great, the scene
typical
where Henry asks his
ass
father for his
father-in-law.
mother's wedding
And he
ring
doesn't end up being
makes
that
him
character at all.
sad.
Like he's
Claire
actually
is very
probably,
touching
other
and
than Claire, he's
well-done in the
probably the
movie, but
sanest member of the
that's really
family.
about Henry's side.
You know, the mother's
We don't
got
get an
problems, and
opportunity to see Sheila. We
the
just all
son's
of a
got
sudden
problems.
see
The youngest,
Henrietta.
the
I
Claire's
do
sister
like,
is
however, that we get to
pretty
see
level-headed
Henry's
too. But
mother.
the father, you know, is
We
just
don't
trying to hold
actually
everything together, and he
see
really is an
Annette
interesting
in the
character
book. That
from
is,
that
there aren't many
perspective for
scenes
sure.
with her. We mostly just hear Henry talking about her. In the movie, we actually get to see a scene where Henry travels back in time and has a conversation with his
I
mother.
like that they
It's a
included
really
his
nice
mother
scene, shows
too.
us a little bit
His
about
mother
her
really is an
parents.
interesting
Henry's
character as
friend,
well,
Gomez, has the same problem in the movie as
in
Henry.
her
They
own
remove
way.
all of the elements of his character that make him unlikable, but in Gomez's case, that
Oh,
pretty much
Gomez.
defines his character. We also don't see as much
I
of him in the
was
movie. He just
very
isn't as much
surprised
of
when
a
I
part of
saw
Henry and Claire's life.
Gomez,
But
because
the few moments
that
that
is
Gomez
not how I
appears in
pictured
the movie
Gomez from
are
the book at all,
really
and I don't really don't think that's how
effective
he's
with the acting
described
and the
really
design.
either.
So the scene I
Yeah, and
mentioned earlier
this
is
threw
about
me
the
too, and I think I mentioned this later in the
now
review.
more so
He
than
doesn't
before with Henry and
age.
Claire's
Gomez does
relationship.
not age. The other
In
characters
general, the
age a
movie
bit, but
focuses on the
Gomez
development of
really
Henry
doesn't.
and
He looks
Claire
pretty
to
much
become the
exactly the
actors.
same. I don't
There's
even think
nothing
there are any
wrong with
gray
that, as
hairs or
obviously the story
anything.
is about Henry and Claire, so we have to
It's
focus on their character
odd.
development. But the other characters are interesting to look at too, and the book has
So
the
that was
opportunity to really look at them.
one little
The
glitch
characters
that
in
I
the movie are so
noticed
well performed in the movie that we
watching the
do see a
movie.
really well done, but the book gives us more to look at.
Yeah,
Plus, there are
this
two
is where I talk
characters in
about Kimmy,
particular that were flat out
and also
eliminated
Ingrid
from the movie that
Carmichael,
really add an extra
which
dimension to the story.
Ingrid
First
Carmichael
is
was one of those
Kimmy,
characters that
played
I
by
didn't
Serena
realize
Williams,
the
who
full
is
significance
essentially
of until
Henry's
I'd read the book
caretaker.
3 or 4
I like
times.
this character for a lot
I
of
just thought,
reasons.
okay,
One of them
she's
being that I
the
think
former
that
bitchy
every
girlfriend,
story
great.
can benefit from additional
But I
elements to
didn't
it.
realize the
But I
significance of
think
the
the
fact
main
that
reason I like
she
Kimmy so
also
much
knows
is
about
that
Henry's
she
time traveling.
refuses to put
Like
up with
she
Henry's bullshit, and
understands,
he
you know,
sees
when
the
Henry
writing
appears
logic
naked in
in
her
her from the
apartment, she
story.
understands
Even as a
why.
child,
You
he
know,
had
it's
lessons on how to
she's
go, but
not
even
killing. You
as
know, we
older,
know that she killed
Kimmy has
herself
the
like early
power
in the
to
story.
put Henry in his
We
place when
we
no
know
one
that
else
she probably
can,
killed herself
and
over
that's
Henry. We know
important.
that she
The
probably
other
killed herself
character
because
is
Henry,
Ingrid
you know,
Carmichael,
couldn't be committed
Henry's
to the
girlfriend and
relationship.
lover
But
before
then we
they
later
met.
find out she
Ingrid is
killed
the
herself because
stereotypical
she
bitchy
could
former
not stand to
girlfriend.
be in love with a
Pretty
guy
much
who had this
maintains a
disorder. She
characterization of
knew that
her
Henry couldn't
right up
help
until the
himself, but
end
it
of the
didn't
book, when
matter.
we
She just
discover
couldn't
that Ingrid
bear to
actually
live with
understood
that.
Henry on a level that
Which
not
is what
many
makes,
people
and that's why I
understand.
say she's like the
Ingrid is kind of like
anti-Claire.
the
Like she could have
anti-Claire.
ended up
She's
with
how Claire
Henry,
could have ended up being
and
with
this is how
Henry in
Claire
this
could have ended
turbulent
up if she
relationship
had
if she
not
wouldn't
been
have
as
seen
strong a
Gomez.
person
The
and
story can
had
survive
as
without
strong
her,
a love for
obviously,
Henry as she
but she's
did.
such a
Which is
fascinating
what
character to
makes
look
Ingrid.
at
So I love
despite
it
how
when
thoroughly
books and movies
unlikable
include those
she is.
characters. You know, kind of
Overall,
a
most
what
of us
if
had more
character. Like
time to
what if
develop
the
this
character
movie
was a
to
little
build these
bit different,
characters so that
just
far more
tweaked a
interesting things
little
can
bit?
happen this
How
way.
would they end up? And it's amazing, you know, what differences can crop up when you do that.
Now, a new category that really defined a big part of
This is
this
the first
story,
reviewer I used the
composition.
composition
Which
round.
version put together
because I was, I'm always thinking about, what rounds, and I think one of the options I considered was doing Henry, Claire, other characters, imagery, and story. But then I thought, no, a big aspect of this book is the way that it's put together. Like that's what I love about it is the way that it's put together, the way that all the different incarnations of Henry, the different ages of Henry kind of are interwoven throughout the story, and the way that they tell this story in kind of a non-linear fashion, but also kind of a linear fashion. It's kind of strange. It's confusing if you think about it too hard. But that was one of the things that I really loved about it was how it was put together, and so I knew I had to include a round where I talked about the composition of the book, and so that's why I included it here, and I've used it in other reviews as well. It's handy. It's handy to have a composition round, because sometimes I don't use it all the time, but sometimes you do need to talk about how is a story put together, how is a movie put together, how is a story put together, how is a book put together, and how do these things differ? Because oftentimes they do differ, and that's where one of the big differences that you sometimes see between books and movies. And sometimes books do it better, and sometimes movies do it better. I think the biggest flaw in book composition is that oftentimes they try to make it too complicated. Time Traveler's Wife is just complicated enough for me. Like it's complicated enough that I'm really interested by it and I'm really drawn into the story because of it. But if it gets any more complicated, then I start to get confused. Yeah, like I think the downfall of a lot of books is that they try to make the composition too complicated. And movies often do a great job of simplifying things, not dumbing it down, but just simplifying it so that it's understandable and it's not confusing people. And Time Traveler's Wife, the movie, definitely did that. Like I think a lot of people could very easily be confused by the composition in the book, but the movie really does show everything that the book does, but it shows it more simply and almost more elegantly, and that's getting into imagery here. That's something I didn't mention. I just, again, if I could do this again, I'd probably mention it, but the movie is in a lot of ways more elegant than the book. Like the book, because it is so complicated and because, it's segmented a lot of times, it's not always very elegant. It's just kind of, these are the events that happen, and that's good in its own way, but the movie is very elegant. It flows, and I love the montages, like the time passing montages, like when they're showing the early years of Henry and Claire's relationship, and they're showing, they're preparing dinner, and then Henry's gone, and then we see Claire cleaning up and eating dinner by herself. They just show us these scenes, no dialogue, just background music, and then they show us, the scenes of Alba growing up and all that sort of thing, and it really works, and it works. What the book did is basically just added extra scenes, scenes that maybe weren't important to the plot, but they showed us what was going on, and that has the same effect. But I love the way the movie handles it, and again, very simple and very elegant and very effective, and that's one of the things that really makes the movie work. Yeah, yeah, I can't remember. I mean, obviously I read the book first, but I can't remember if I reread the book for this review after I'd watched the movie. I think I did, because I remember thinking when I saw that scene, it was very touching. Seriously, I almost cried when I saw that scene. Like even. And that's why I say even more so than the scene between Henry and Claire. The scene between Henry and Claire is touching too, but the scene between Henry and Gomez really, really got me. Just because it was so simple, there were no words between them, but you saw something pass between them. But where was I going with this? I don't even remember. Oh yeah, and then I read the book, and it was just like Henry just said, "I'm dying, Gomez. This is it." And that was like the end of it, and it was nice. It still worked. You still had that moment between them, but the movie was a lot more compelling. Oh, I love the way they portray the time travel. It's kind of the slow fading out. Like that's probably not conducive with the book's description of time travel with the slow fading out, but I like what they did with it here because it works. It has some dramatic convenience, but that works for this, because you see kind of you get to see kind of those final moments between characters. This music, by the way, is called Achilles. It's by Kevin MacLeod. It's on Incompetech.com as a royalty-free website. I use it a lot because it's like a minute long, just kind of this epic battle segment, and I absolutely love it. I use it every possible opportunity that I can. Probably a little bit too much at times, but I really do like that music.
Now, we've already talked about a lot of the major aspects of the story in the other categories, but when you look
Well,
at
that's true in any review I do. I always talk about the major aspects in the other categories, and then the story categories kind of become like the wrap-up category. Though sometimes I'll talk about individual plot elements. Yeah, I was watching this again, and I was thinking, I really go into depth with this one. Like, I don't know that I've done that as recently, gone that far into depth. I need to start doing that again because this is really, I mean, even just watching again, I was thinking, wow, this is really interesting. Wait a minute, I wrote this. Which is awful to say, like, oh yeah, I find my own material interesting, but I've been away from it for a while, so I couldn't honestly remember what all I'd said.
Even though I understand why they did what they did with the story, and even though the movie still
I really do. I think that Time Traveler's Wife is a really good example of how you can make a movie based on a well-beloved book work without having to adhere directly to the book's material. You know, it does. I mean, it adheres to a lot of it. A lot of the scenes are the same, but it does have kind of a different feel to it, but it works. Like, it works as its own element. It's not like the book, but it's okay. It's still good. It's not like the book, and it's not as good as the book, but it's still a really good movie. Like, I really did enjoy watching the movie, and like I said, I do kind of want to go and watch it again now that I've watched this review over. I also want to reread the book, but I try to do that as often as I can anyway, because it's an excellent book. Yeah, every time I even hear about this story, like hearing, you know, watching the review and hearing the different plot elements again, I want to watch it again. I want to watch the movie again. I want to read the book again. I want to experience the story, which in my mind is the sign of a good story. Another good example of that is Book Thief, which my girlfriend is reading right now, and so I just took it from her one day and started reading it and say, oh yeah, I remember, this is a really good book. I want to read this again. No, because she's borrowing my copy. Yeah.
It adds a whole new dimension to the story as we see that Henry is Henry.
Yeah. Really, what the movie is a love story. I think the main difference that you can find here, the movie is a love story, and it works as a love story, and you know, all the elements are there. The book is almost a two-way character study. Like, it has the love element in it too, but it's really a character study of Henry, a character study of Claire, and the way that their love works, and the way that everything works between them. And I think in some ways that makes it more compelling, but I think that the movie is also compelling in its own way. It's just trying to do something different than what the book is trying to do. The book is just trying to look at these two characters who lead these abnormal lives and seeing how they deal with it. You know, which is, you know, basic characterization. You take this character, you develop them over time, you develop past, present, and so on, and then you put them in a situation, you say, okay, deal with it, and you see what happens. That's where storytelling comes from. Yeah, here we go. To Kill a Mockingbird. Yes, I'll probably do a commentary on the To Kill a Mockingbird review. That'll probably be the next one up. To Kill a Mockingbird is the first instance of executive producer Brad Pitt. That surprised me when I saw that. But To Kill a Mockingbird is really the first one that I did where it was actually a difficult choice. Like most of these, you know, especially with this one I knew book's gonna win going in. And I think the other 6 were the same. Like for pretty much all of them, I knew going in which one was going to win. I think Freaky Friday is probably the only one where I wasn't sure, and that's just because I'd never read the book. Cut it off before the final cadence. Music majors hate that.
Is he gonna tell me what it is? Or sorry, To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah, but this is the first one that was really like he says, really a battle. It was hard. I read the book, I watched the movie, and it was like, wow, I honestly don't know which one I'm gonna pick because they're both really, really good. In fact, I think they're both on the same level of ranking on my top 10 list. All right, that's it. Stay tuned for To Kill a Mockingbird. Bye.